you need to be able to like fully leverage AI and add value to it. And if you can't, AI is just going to replace you.
The computer in front of you is the beginnings of a silicon-based life form.
These tools allow companies to be extremely small, right? That's why everybody's watching for the first single person unicorn.
Welcome to the Venture Capital Podcast. I'm John Bradshaw. This is Peter Harris. He's a VC with the University Growth Fund. I am a founder, and today we're going to talk about how, one, AI is accelerating, and talk about the economics of AI versus labor versus capital. And I do believe this episode will be more of a Peter speech.
Dialogue, monologue? No,
Yes.
I hope not. So John, the reason I wanted to chat about this though with you and have it as a discussion is because I've been having a lot of conversations with people in the last few weeks, and especially a bunch of VCs. And the sentiment is like we're simultaneously super excited and absolutely terrified at the rate of change in the world of AI. And I think part of that's because, and you and I talked a little bit about this before, but you know, I've been investing now as a venture capitalist for the last 16 years. More or less came into it right when like SaaS was just starting to become a thing, right? Most software was still on-prem, and people were just starting to make that transition to cloud. And you know, went through multiple different iterations, right? Like I remember growing up, and even this was before my investment days, but you know, growing up with the internet and seeing all the change, because my dad was a computer engineer growing up. And so we, of course, had computers. We had access to the internet really early. And so kind of grew up through all that. So I've seen all of these, you know, big changes, right? Internet, and then mobile and social. And now we're into AI. And it's not so much that things have never like advanced this quickly, but they've never advanced this quickly across every single vertical all at once. Because AI just touches almost everything, especially when you roll in robotics and the unlock that AI offers to robotics that wasn't possible before. And when I say AI, I mean specifically generative AI. And so it's creating this like, it's like I was talking to this one VC, and he was like, it's like a tale of two cities. On the one hand, there's going to be insane amounts of money being made in AI, and you can see that happening. Like in today, like in this environment, there's so much potential that will be unlocked. And on the other hand, it is a potential existential threat to like our entire portfolio of companies pre-AI, right? And it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of scary, right? Like I wonder, like, what are my kids gonna do? Hopefully they do something, but I don't know exactly what it is they're going to do. I don't know. What are you thinking? You're on the founder side, you're working with clients, you're building product. You know, today we talked about how in our all hands staff meeting, we were talking a little bit about AI and how the unemployment rate right now for computer programmers is about 8%, which is about equivalent to graduating from college. Like this is like people straight out of undergrad, right? So they get a degree in computer science. What's their unemployment rate? And it's about the same as being an anthropology major, which is kind of crazy. And it used, like just a few years ago, it was, oh man, if you want to get a job, you need to study like computer science. And now it's not clear that actually is worth it. So anyways, what are you thinking? What are you seeing?
So before this whole AI wave took off, when I was starting Codebase, I had kind of two thoughts about like the end of my career. One, I would never sell Codebase, but AI would eventually come and take over, and the world would change, and it would probably put Codebase out of business. but I was thinking like when I'm 60, 70, 80, and that we would have robots. So when I'm in a nursing home, because I'm like a 270-pound guy, and I feel bad for any nurse that has to take care of me. But I'm like, we'll have robots at that point who can like lift me up and help me like, clean myself off, get dressed. And that's the world I've envisioned. And my guess is that right now we're overestimating the short term and underestimating the long term. That's something that Jason Calacanis just said and kind of stuck in my head. It was one of his guests. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's probably about once a month we'll have like a 24-hour anxiety attack. I think we can all be honest and free to talk about it. Um, I do think that what we currently see with AI will be much like a calculator and Excel came about. I'm sure accountants at the time thought their jobs were done, and yet we have more accountants than perhaps before. There's more of a need and a use where those knowledge workers became more and more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just like in software development, what software developers did 20 years ago, it will continue to change, that the roles will change and some may not exist, but they will continue to progress. I don't think this wave is an AGI wave like everyone's saying. I think people who are saying AGI are doing it for personal clout reasons. They can get more followers, more clicks, just like news articles can. But
But
I
you
do
don't think we'll
believe,
get to AGI?
I do think we will. I think when you look at the laptop in front of you, when I grew up listening to like PBS, they talked about carbon-based life forms like humans. And they said, well, it's possible that life might exist in like a silicon-based life form instead of carbon. And my argument is the computer in front of you is the beginnings of a silicon-based life form.
Okay.
It's the genesis, it's the embryo. So I definitely think we will. The question is when. I do think you'll see more and more people go to, you know, what is it? The trades. I think you'll see a shift back. But I also think like the world will become much safer. I think we'll see um, better construction, safer houses.
In some
I
ways, it
think
could get more or less safe, right? Because if people can't find jobs,
I think there will be things for people to do, but I also think it won't. I think in like 100 years, when kids are in school, they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, like our parents work 40 hours a week," and that'll seem barbaric.
hmm,
I think people typically historically fear change.
yeah,
And I think even in a world of AGI, I think there will be entrepreneurs and VCs who will learn to leverage it and chase opportunities that we could only dream of today. Like I think one of the things that's that I'm surprised by is that AI has helped us learn about new magnets that exist that aren't rare earth minerals. And I just think there are so many things happening at all at the same time that in fact you could say there are more opportunities to chase these than ever.
yeah,
More opportunities. And I think we also live in a world where there's going to be much more specialization. I think we're going into a world where doctors can be much more empathetic and focus on the human touch instead of having to worry about seeing 50 patients in a day or and if they don't get fired.
yeah,
And so I
and
think
being biased, right?
Mhm,
And because they have limited data sets and limited time and can't remember everything and
mhm. I think
all
we
that
see
biases.
one of the things you've talked about is I think we live in a divide where um, people stop learning to think for themselves as much, which is also
Yeah,
scary.
yeah. I mean, it's the MIT study, right? That showed that if people just relied on ChatGPT too much, their cognitive brain function declined.
Oh, I've started doing a thing, I call it No AI Fridays,
Okay.
where the emails and stuff that I write, I focus on, hey, I'm going to actually write this email myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that way you're still exercising those muscles. But I think it's just like before, like I used to spend a lot of time writing emails that were probably average. Now
Mhm.
my emails I think are much better. I spend probably I work probably about the same amount, but my output's better.
Yeah.
So before, if I was gonna spend an hour writing an email to a client, I'm still probably spending an hour in some instances, but now it's much more clear. I'm going through it. I've shifted from creating to brain dumping and editing.
Yeah.
And so, like, the work has changed, but work still exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And more opportunities will exist than ever before. And I think that's the thing with some of these AI, AGI doomsdayers are missing is that
It's
I I think we need to look and say there's just more opportunities than we'll have ever seen before.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, like what, 200 years ago, 95% of the US population were farmers who they probably worked like 120-hour weeks if you really counted up all the amount of time it took to produce enough food to stay alive for a year, right? It was just like nonstop work. And that feels barbaric compared to our 40-hour work weeks today. So as bad as it is, it's not as bad. And there's no way that a farmer had any clue what like a social media manager was. I couldn't even dream of that job. So I tend to agree with you. I think the thing that makes everybody a little nervous is just like how fast this transition is happening. We've never gone through a period of transition that's been this quick across every single vertical. Because part of it was always like, oh, well, now we have the cotton gin, right? And manufacturing. And so,
The telegraph and
but it didn't hit everything all at once.
Mhm.
Right. So you had like a small portion of the population that had time to readjust, retrain, find other things. But theoretically, this is going to hit every single sector. It is hitting every single sector at once. So while I agree with you, like there's a lot of opportunities than ever before, it's also like a little bit nerve wracking in that is there time to retrain, retool, and hit other things. And the other thing that's interesting is, I mean, you can these tools allow companies to be extremely small, right? That's why everybody's watching for the first single person unicorn. And there's some companies that have gotten super, super close to that already. Um, and so then it's like, well, I don't need 500 people to achieve that result, and 500 people in 10 years to get to $1 billion outcome. There are companies that are doing it in 6 months, 12 months, right? And so with a very, very, very small team. Um, so I don't know. It's a little bit of like those other individuals need to kind of wake up. There's a lot of us that I don't know. I think we're in this like really interesting window where the people that are paying attention are taking advantage of the tools that exist and building all kinds of apps. And like there's huge value being created because they're the first ones or they're one of the very few that are doing what they're doing. And pretty soon there's going to be a billion other people trying to compete for that same thing. And all of a sudden it's going to be really hard to rise above the noise. Um, so I actually don't know that like a single person company is possible. It's possible, but I think they're going to have to raise a lot of money just to rise above the crowd and all the noise and everything else that's coming. And then I think about all of these people. So recently we're in the midst of recruiting right now for our fall cohort. And some of the people that have applied, I honestly just kind of worry about them because I'm like, the stuff you've produced is not that good. And in today's day and age, like the jobs, the like middle tier jobs in business that existed for frankly like kind of middle tier, quality employees are not going to exist anymore in the world of AI, right? It's like your accountant thing. There were a lot of people that were literal bean counters, right? And that was their job. And then calculators came out and wiped out all those jobs. And so you had to really up your game. And the thing that I think that's terrifying is you've got these studies that are basically showing that the calculator today is making people dumber at the exact time when they need to be smarter in order to have an edge. So I don't know. Those are some of the things that like make me nervous. And it's something I pound on the table with our students. I'm like, if you are not able to think critically, you are going to be in a really tough situation in your career, because you need to be able to like fully leverage AI and add value to it. And if you can't, AI is just going to replace you. So I don't know. Where do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
I think though that just like with a calculator, those that learned the principles and learned how to think, like they're gonna have more of an advantage.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
also
no,
just
I
think
think you're
people,
right. I think you need to be learning it. And that's why I'm saying like we're in this interesting window where people are kind of sort of using it, but I don't think they fully like wrap their arms around it and are using it to the extent they need to.
but I also think that there, like some of this isn't just AI.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of the like look at during the age of COVID when the government just handed out money. How many times in your history has it happened? So you have a generation who's like, hey, if something's gonna happen, the government is going to step in and I don't have to stress. And when I look at myself versus some of my peers who maybe be 5 or 10 years younger, I feel like I have a much harder drive, partly because my grandpa went through the Great Depression, and I would see him eat moldy pie and not throw stuff away. And I think kids today, they're like, "Oh, it's expired, let's toss it."
Yeah.
And so the it's not just AI, I think and we've talked about this, like, with millennials and Gen Z and whatnot, is that they've grown up in a society where there is no stress. Sterling Snow posted on LinkedIn today, he said, "Sometimes fear and anxiety." Let me grab the link real fast. We were talking about this. Where is that?
Well, I mean, you need
Uh,
stress. Stress is good,
yeah.
right? Like
So Sterling Snow
overly
said that,
stressed is not, but
yeah. He says, "You might not want to admit it, but stress is a performance enhancer. Desperation is a creativity machine. Fear is a powerful motivator. Anger is a great fuel. Doesn't always feel good, but sure works from what I've observed. Lose those traits at your own peril." And there was a lot of like debate like about it, but I think at the core, I think what your students are missing is they grew up in an environment free from many of those things.
they're just coddled and they're
Mhm.
weak. I
And
think that's maybe part of it. I think part of it though too is that from my perspective, man, it's like hard to keep up. Every
everyone feels
single
that way.
day there's like 5 new killer apps and it's like, wow, like how do you stay up to date with these, right? And one of the challenges is that AI is amazing in terms of what it can do and the barriers that it lowers. It also is still not at a point where I can just roll into any app and immediately get full value out of it. There's still a learning curve. And so it's like there's all of these new companies, new apps popping up all the time, and there's not enough time to check them all out and get up the learning curve to like derive value from them. And so it's like it's almost like this paradox of choice issue as well,
But
where
everyone's
some
feeling
days
the
I'm
same
just
way.
like, you know what? I can't even stay on top of it, so I'm not even try.
Okay. But everyone's feeling that way.
I know,
It's
and that's my
fatigue.
point, right? Like everybody, we're all like overwhelmed with the speed of what's happening.
So what happens if for the economic standpoint, when labor becomes free with robots and intelligence becomes free, assuming we hit like an AGI?
Well, so true labor is like humans, right? So robots are just another form of capital. They're not actually labor.
But what happens when you have a robot, so you no longer need 90% of your staff at a nursing home? What happens when robots are doing all the farming,
Yeah.
right? When human
Yeah,
labor
well,
is
you
more
think about it this
expensive.
way. You've been to a bunch of your teams in India, right?
Yeah.
How many things in India are done with manual labor that in the US are done with capital?
Mm, a lot. So if it's not Microsoft Excel,
Yeah.
a lot of Indian companies don't use it
Yeah.
because it's cheaper to hire 5 or 6 analysts and the mistakes they may make than paying for a SaaS subscription that's, that 1,000 a month.
Yep. Yep. Right. And so this is the trade-off between capital and labor. So it's not that like there aren't better solutions that already exist. It's that the marginal production of capital or the marginal value of production of capital compared to labor in different markets doesn't make sense. Like you're gonna just have the guy with the scissors go around and cut the grass rather than buy a lawnmower, because the lawnmower is going to cost you, several $100s, and that guy's labor is going to cost you like $2 a day, right? And so it's going to take a lot of days before you can recoup the cost of that lawnmower. And then you still have to have somebody that operates the lawnmower, right? So um, I think there's a lot of fear around, oh man, like all of the jobs are going to immediately disappear. I think what's more likely to happen is you'll see. So as we have, I mean, really what this AI technology does is it drives down the cost of capital, right? And so as the cost of capital goes down, it makes the cost of labor also need to go down as well. And but there will still be opportunities for people where there will be people that will be willing to make less money, rather than, well, they'll rather than not make anything, right? And I think what'll also happen is technology has a deflationary effect on economies. So part of the reason why the US is able to get away with borrowing so much money for so long is because our technology advantage gives us the ability to have a deflationary impact on our monetary system at the same time that we're printing money effectively, which has an inflationary effect. And so this probably just further accelerates that deflationary environment where the cost of goods and services declines by quite a bit. So that's your deflationary standpoint. And then it's okay if the cost of labor drops because you can still buy all the same amount of things with the same amount of labor, and wages. Well, with a decreased amount in wages. And so I don't know. I don't know that like UBI is going to actually be a thing that makes sense, because I think there will still be enough jobs and opportunities for people to substitute their labor for capital, and earn money in the same way that in India they don't pay for software, even though they could. It exists, and the price of it's come down, and the price of labor has gone up. So there are some companies that are probably starting to buy that stuff, right? But it's taken a while for those two things to occur, right? And part of it is labor needs to be able to produce more. And one of the promises of AI is that it makes labor more efficient, and more productive. And so I don't know. It's an interesting debate, but the more I've thought about it, the more I'm less worried, I guess, that all of a sudden people are going to be completely out of a job, because there'll always be this trade-off of capital versus labor. Just because the robot exists doesn't necessarily mean that it makes financial sense to buy the robot to do the things, right?
But I also think we're going to a phase where the phrase "the riches are in the niches" becomes even more prominent and more
Mm.
valuable.
Why do you
And
believe that?
I think there's a lot of opportunities that weren't profitable before
Uh-huh.
because they were just too cost prohibitive, and
Yeah.
that's going to shift. So, like, the other day I saw, um, a robotic bricklayer machine, and one person could lay an entire driveway where before you would need an entire team.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, in my mind, it clicked that, opportunities that never existed are now gonna exist where you could have those 10 bricklayers now, instead of just working on one driveway, working on 10 driveways.
Yeah.
So I think the world drastically changes, life gets easier
But can you
as well.
afford the bricklayer?
You won't need the bricklayer because you'll have
But I
one
mean the machine.
operator
Can you
and a
afford the
robot.
machine?
Yes, because a machine is significantly cheaper than, like, than the
Then what?
equivalent. Look at, like, a car versus a horse, right? The costs. They get cheaper over time. It's economics, right? Look how much a pencil
Yeah, but a
costs. What
car today is far more expensive than a vehicle.
do you mean a car is more expensive than a
Sorry,
vehicle?
than a horse.
But it doesn't do the same or go as far or last as long.
Right. Right.
The horse would, if the horse went to if a horse took me to India every single year, I'd be I wouldn't have gone to I would have been to India once or twice maybe,
Yeah.
round trip, and the horses would have died,
Yeah.
and I would not have been able to chase more opportunities,
Yeah.
right? So I think what happens is you have nursing homes that are cheaper. You have If you have robots that can do plumbing, they'll probably be human assisted for a very long time,
Yeah.
and that will be easier and cheaper. I think, waste removal and all those things, there's other things people can do, and I think again, just like we're not working 120 hours a day, and the average American's probably working 40 to 55 hours a week, I think that will continue to go down. But I think there's more opportunities than ever before that will exist and pop up.
But do you think all these people will be able to take advantage of those opportunities?
I
Will they
think
have
yes.
the ability, the interest, the
Oh,
motivation, the
I think it'll
intellectual
get
capacity?
well, I think it'll continue to shift as we have more and more abundance. It'll be easier for people to grift off of the system.
Mm.
And especially as we live in a safer world where we don't have wars that physically reset the markets.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to
I
see
don't
more
know
and
that
more
we're not gonna
people.
have wars
I
because I
think
think what technology absolutely does, and I don't think anybody questions this, is that it concentrates wealth. And so I think you're going to have individuals that are trillionaires and there's going to be everybody else.
but
And
I th-
when the majority, it doesn't matter that your needs are met, right? People still get angry.
yeah, there'll be revolutions if there's too much.
Yeah. So I
And I
just
do
don't,
and
I'm just saying,
I
I
think
don't
the
know that
billionaires talk
like,
about this right now.
what?
The billionaires talk about this right now.
Oh, totally. Yeah. That's why they're all like, we need UBI because we need to appease the masses so they don't come after us.
Mhm.
But I don't think technology in of itself is going to result in less wars.
Mhm. Do you think with AI, is it a bad time to start a VC fund? Pulling it back to our core.
No.
Is it a
Here's the
bad time?
interesting thing
Yeah.
about here's the interesting thing about AI is and VC is that it used to be pre-AI that it took 10 years to build $1 billion company. And
Mhm.
now, as I said earlier, now it can take as little as a year or two, which then means that as a fund, you can exit your position in a year or two and move on to the next thing or recycle or whatever it might be. And you can just place a lot of bets. And so like theoretically, this like feedback loop is like so much faster than it's ever been before.
But
And so
do
like
you,
there could be like tremendous opportunities.
do you think that's a short term or a long term thing? Do you think what you're seeing is what's selling is like the windsurfs and the lovables and Replit going from 1 million to 100 million in like 3 years?
Uh-huh.
Are you, I look at those and I just see those as apps, not as true businesses
Mm-hmm.
that have got a short term advantage or boost because of OpenAI. And in the future, when economies of scale balance out, that that will just
We're gonna go
disappear.
back to 10 years to grow.
Yeah, because there's been such a massive tidal wave
Yeah.
that some people are going to hit the jackpot really fast, but
Yeah.
that tidal wave doesn't last. When the rest of us figure out what the hell AI is, what is it not,
Yeah.
where are the opportunities? Granted, I think there'll be more opportunities for millionaires to be created today than even like Amazon created,
Yeah.
but it's going to create a wave, and a lot of these things like Lovable and Windsurf, I don't think
But that's like
they'll
every
see the
wave,
same
right?
wavelength.
There's like a period of
Mhm.
time where you can take advantage of it. I mean, the joke was like the best time to be a VC of all time was during the dot-com boom because there was so much money being raised and companies were being valued so highly so quickly that you could have a 5x fund return by being like totally mediocre. Like that was the average. And so it was like super easy to be a VC. And I feel like to a certain extent, there's a little bit of that happening right now if you know how to play the game, right? Now, you're right. Eventually that goes away, just like at the dot-com bust, right? That went away. So these things don't last forever. But you asked if like right now is a good time. It probably is a great time to have a venture fund, to raise a fund and start deploying aggressively into AI. Well, these companies can scale super fast. Because again, I think it's like we mentioned earlier, we're in this window where there's a few people that are like launching the first AI solution for their niche, and they're getting all the air in the room. And in like 6 to 12 months, there's going to be literally like 1,000 competitors banging down their door, chasing their heels, right? Um, because it's going to get easier and easier and easier to build product in all those different industries. So it's kind of like, yeah, fun stuff now, let it scale super fast, figure out a way to exit those investments or profit from them.
Yeah, I do think one of my thoughts this week is if I had an app that just went gangbusters, I'm like, it's probably you take your chips off the table fast. If you get significant chips, take your chips off.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the app, but yeah. Yeah. Um, but it is crazy. The other thing, though, that I think a lot about is that for VCs, what is super hard, and honestly, this happens every time there is a major new trend. The people that win, the funds that win, are the ones that figure out what are the things that matter when deciding who to invest in. So, for example, when marketplaces first became possible because we had the internet, we had mobile, and we had social. So think about like Uber. Benchmark was willing to pay a huge premium to get into Uber and lead that round. This like on a comparative basis from like revenue and so forth, because they recognized based on their other marketplace investments in companies like OpenTable, what were the metrics that really mattered. So for example, one of the metrics that really mattered was Uber being able to say with statistically significant authority that if somebody rode in their cars twice, they had them for life, right? That they would keep coming back again and again and again and again. Once you know that, and you know that that's the only thing that really matters to demonstrate product market fit, you can go all in really early and identify the winners. And so I think there are companies, there are funds out there that are figuring this out. We don't know exactly who they are yet, but we'll know like eventually. But the thing that's really challenging as a VC is that all the other things that you're used to being able to point to as being green flags and proof of like product market fit are potentially like just bait. Like they're not real. They might actually be kind of red flags. So I think about like Lovable, right? Lovable is growing super fast, right? I think they've reported like 100 million in ARR or whatever. But aren't they just maybe like one OpenAI demo day away from being out of business? And so even though like revenue has grown incredibly fast over a relatively short time period, they still face like massive existential threats that really we haven't seen that before, unless you had like a few like somewhat limited cases where maybe somebody built on Meta's platform and then Meta cut them off, right? Things like that.
which hasn't happened to anyone in this room.
Yeah, it has never happened. Well, look at Zynga, right? They built their whole business on Facebook, and then Facebook kind of changed some things.
Tiny Torch, my past business.
Yeah. So I mean, there have been, but those have been like fairly isolated. Whereas now, like fairly isolated to like certain verticals or certain platforms, but now it's like everything, right? Because everything's built on just a handful of these big AI engines. So yeah, and it's trying to figure out what are the metrics, what's the approach that tells you like this company will ultimately be durable, right? It's going to last for a long time. They built something that won't be, AI-ified away. And it's hard. I think it's really hard. My impression is that it is, and we've kind of talked about this on kind of our thesis around AI and the impact it's going to have, is that the things that will matter to a certain extent are the UX and the UI and the like how much people are actually using it, engaging with it, putting in data, right? The level of proprietary data I think is super important. And also like what was I gonna say? Oh, like this idea of what are the things that the company is doing that are not AI-able, that when paired with AI, like give them an advantage. So for example, like we're looking at this company, and for this company, in order to close sales, they have to be there physically in person, because that's the only way that people will buy the product in that industry. In all other industries, they'll buy it over Zoom, but in this one, you got to be there in person. That's just the way they operate. The customers operate. And so it's like, okay, well, if you have a business and you've optimized the whole thing around in-person field sales, right? It's gonna be really hard for AI to disrupt that too much, because what they're gonna like send off robots, like that's not gonna work, right? So I think things like that, where there's like this interpersonal component, which is also why like I'm not horribly worried about AI wiping out VC jobs, because it's just so relationship driven at the end of the day.
Although I would argue, if a robot came to me and said, "John, here's $1 million, will you invest?" I'm Mr. Robotic VC. I'd take it.
Would
I
you
had
though? Because like, how's the robot going to react when like you missed your numbers? Is it going to be understanding? Is it going to work with you? Is it going to pick up the phone at midnight and like commiserate with you?
When
And maybe
I
you
don't.
don't care. Maybe you're like, well,
It's a cool PR story.
I mean, people are using, OpenAI and Claude for emotional therapy and support. Um, the other thing though that I think is interesting about being a VC is, and I think this is the other thing where there is huge opportunity for individuals and companies, is to become like a tastemaker. So, and VC really is kind of like the ultimate tastemaker job, right? You meet with lots of founders and ideas, and you kind of pick what the things are that you think the future will look like, and you fund them and you help bring them into reality, right? Like you are kind of a tastemaker. And I think you're going to see that across the board in every industry, because we're going to get flooded with so much stuff that people that can highlight, identify the best stuff and are trusted because they're authentic are going to have like a huge advantage. But
We'll see. But I
what do
agree
you
with all those points. I think I agree with a lot of that. I think it's interesting when you're looking for things like closing sales in person, things like that. Like when I was with the Utah Angels, I felt like you would see trends as an investor like almost in waves.
Yep.
Like a good idea would represent itself in Utah 3 or 4 times with no apparent connection to one another.
Yeah. Well,
And I
it's
imagine
like,
you're seeing waves like that now.
oh, for sure. I mean, you constantly see these waves, largely because it's like when you have multiple things hit at once, or new technology against, an existing technology or problem, it just unlocks opportunities that weren't available before.
Mhm.
And generally, lots of people see those opportunities
At the
and
same time.
want to, at the same time, and want to take advantage of them. So, yeah. Which is always why the question is like, why now? And then why you as a VC, right? So, anyways, but yeah, I mean, it's simultaneously like super exciting and terrifying what's happening. And I spend a lot of time thinking about like, what are the things I need to do to help my kids be prepared for this new environment.
What
And
are those
not
things?
sure what those things are yet. I'm still trying to figure them out. But I think part of it is, and this is what we tell our students at UGF, spend the time to think critically about whatever your task is and attempt it to a certain extent on your own. And then pull in AI to help you go, like, automate it, take it further, push your assumptions, and get into the process of being able to work iteratively with AI to like create incredible outcomes. But don't use AI as a crutch. It's like in the good old days, it's, in my econometrics course, it's being able to derive multivariate calculus, right? And statistics and the equations and understand it. And then you get to use the software that does all the calculations for you automatically, right? But if you do just the software, you don't understand the underlying math, and it makes it really hard to push the boundaries on your research and the outcomes, and understand how to better optimize your models and so forth.
Yeah.
So you
It's
kind
like
of need one before the other.
it's like college, like your high school physics class. They give you 200 equations to memorize. When you finally take calculus, you realize that position is like the second derivative of velocity, which is then the derivative of acceleration, or like vice versa.
Right,
But
right,
like there's these relationships, and
right.
then it makes more sense how things are connected. And
Yep, yep. And like, look, if you can do that, then it allows you to actually think critically at a very deep level and actually add something to the conversation with AI and not get disrupted by AI.
Mhm. That's why I think in the coming years, I almost think college will be longer. Masters will become more the norm. Like, you'll have to get people to a higher level
Yeah.
before they can become useful.
I mean, maybe. I mean, there's always like limits to this, right? Like developers are not taught how to do machine code anymore.
I would disagree with that. I think the best AI engineers probably have like a background in statistics, in mathematics, in linguistics. Like one of the individuals that presented at AIU today, he was a linguistics major. I don't know why he chose to be a linguistics major, and he did a lot of math. And I don't know, like it's kind of like he hit the jackpot. He happened to take the right majors, and then AI just kind of like took off and put him in a really sweet position.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying that like there's a lot of things that we don't do anymore because we have enough technology to kind of do them. And there are people that are specialized in that stuff, and there will always be. But yeah, I do think it will require you. Well, I mean, look, the innovation is always the intersection of two things, right? So if you really want to stand out, having exposure to more things so you can see these interactions will become more and more valuable.
Amen, brother.
All right. Well, tell us what you think down in the comments. Are you
We'll
terrified about AI? Are you excited? What are you working on? How are you thinking about how to stay relevant and competitive in a world where AI can do everything that humans can do and potentially a lot more? And what do you think? Do you think everyone's going to be out of a job and we will be, the pets of AI? Or will there be lots of new and exciting job opportunities that we can't even dream of today?
Sounds good. Thanks for watching.